Cyberpunk 2077 is easily one of the most loved and most hated games of all time. There's a camp that thinks it's the true next-gen experience, and then separately, there's people that think the developers are complete scam artists. Well, today, the reason I'm talking about it is because they just released the biggest patch ever that finally fixes a lot of the problems to the game itself, and yet, honestly, I'm pretty disappointed. What's up, gamers? DreamcastGuy here. So I've been playing the next-gen update that's finally been released. This is completely free. If you happen to own any version of Cyberpunk, it now plays upgraded on the Xbox Series X and the PlayStation 5. But along with this, they're talking about the fact that this is supposed to basically repair the game in general. This is the much legendary 1.5 patch. Now, my problem is that since the very beginning, they kept teasing that Cyberpunk was going to get a series of free downloadable contents, big, giant new additions to the game itself. Apparently, this bug update, this patch that fixes some of the problems, is apparently one of the free DLCs. So what I want to do today is just check it out. I've been playing this on both Xbox Series X and the PlayStation 5, and I have to say that first and foremost, this update does make the game look a lot better, and the game does run a lot smoother. Let's begin by just talking briefly about the graphics themselves. So this is a very fundamental change. When you see it, there was a lot of very strange visual glitches that existed in the original launch of Cyberpunk. People T-posing, characters falling over dead for no reason, or walking waist deep in pavement. It seems like all of the myriad of glitches that existed, the hundreds of tiny ways that the game can break, have for the most part been repaired. This is a smoother experience, but now you have two separate graphics options when you play this on next-gen tech. You can basically play it in 4K with ray tracing at 30 frames a second, or basically a lower resolution version that's going to be 60 frames a second. I'm going to be frank, I think this looks fantastic. I very much enjoy ray tracing. I really enjoy those things that push the boundaries of visuals, and having a way to realistically replicate shadow effects and reflections, it looks good. They've also done some more subtle stuff like making sure that proper puddles actually look the way they're supposed to, light bounces off things appropriately, and there could even be things like fog effects. Now, while we're talking about reflections, we're going to get into the new content. Now, I'm putting quotes because this stuff, in my opinion, should not count as downloadable content. So here we go, let's talk about some stuff. First and foremost, here we are in V's apartment. V is obviously the main character. They have now made it so you can customize your apartment. You can go to the computer and swap out the way it looks. You can now do stuff like change the color palette, add in extra little things, or even rent out separate apartments so that you don't have to go all the way back to your home every single time. In your apartment, you can now do things like play the guitar a little bit, and also go up to the mirror and finally change the way your character looks. This has been one of the most requested features for over a year, is that once you made your character originally, you were stuck as that forever. Despite the fact that this is the cybernetic future where people got laser beams coming out of their eyeballs, for some reason they thought it was more appropriate to make it where your V stayed your V. You can now change the way your character looks. So this is pretty much the major changes they've done to V's apartment. This is apparently DLC. This is apparently worth a giant patch like 1.5. Now, a lot of the other stuff they've added is more subtle. Things like they've rebalanced a lot of the gameplay, so some guns do more damage. A lot of things are more balanced when it comes to the economy. Certain cars are not so expensive. They've basically tried to tweak a lot of things under the hood to make sure this game looks and plays smoother. Speaking of under the hood, though, they have fixed driving. I never had that much of a problem driving around in Night City. I always thought that it was definitely, it was functional, it was appropriate, it worked as much as possible. They've managed to change all of the gravity and the physics related to vehicles. Cars feel heavier, they're now able to drift it feels much, much, much better. I mean, this game still requires a lot of driving. A lot of people's main insult to Cyberpunk is that it's just futuristic Grand Theft Auto because it forced you to drive so much. Well, at least now, as you're going from location to location, it feels better. I also do think that the aiming and stuff feels a lot smoother just in general. But this does bring me to the major addition that seems to have been added, which is they finally fixed the NPCs. The AI in this game was very busted. Characters were only able to detect one enemy at a time, which meant that, like, if a bunch of cops were fighting a bunch of robbers and you started to walk up, they could not see you. You would literally be invisible because the character was only able to recognize one threat at a time. It seems like they fixed that. They're bragging about the fact that they have, to a big degree, fixed the AI. The artificial intelligence finally has some level of intelligence. This goes for two separate things at once. This goes for the enemies you fight, and it also goes for just the random crowds. If you fire a bullet into a group of people, no longer do they just do that ducking animation. Now they finally run away. They also can get in cars while people are driving away. If you shoot, they now appropriately freak out. You can't just shoot people and they sit there like a catatonic mannequin. These are changes that are nice, but to call this DLC still feels like a bit of an exaggeration. Like, a lot of the updates they've listed here on their official page are ridiculous. Like, hey, if you played this on a PlayStation 5, it's now got 3D audio. Yay, look, I love 3D audio. It's hard to call this an update. Oh, it's got haptic triggers for the DualSense controller on the PlayStation 5. That's cool, but I'm not sure that counts as DLC. Now, the other thing they've decided to add, which I guess is the biggest new addition to this, is a new gun shop. You can go to this place that does randomized sales. If they don't have the guns you like, you're able to just fast forward time and check out the new sales they have. This is nice, but okay, let me just be brutally honest. This is cool. I think it's nice that there's a new way to actually buy guns and, get new cool gadgets to blast people with. My problem, as somebody who has beaten the game, in fact, I think I'm one of the first people in the world who beat it on Xbox. I finished it over like 10 days before the game even came out. My issue is that I want additional content. Real content, not patches that are talking about cool new jackets, not new additional lines for people to do. Like, one of the things they're adding is that now you can text your lovers more often, so the romance options are a bit more intricate. I want new quests. I want New Game Plus. I want something that's going to make me actually care about Night City. You see, I feel weird. I've played so many hours of this game that even now with the next gen patch, I have no reason to go back. What am I going to do? Start a new file? Am I going to try and find the last crappy crackheads that are off in some alley somewhere and blast them with my new super lasers? Give me actual content. Give me a real update. Give me new stuff to do instead of just new butts to look at. These have just been some off-the-cuff thoughts. Honestly, if you haven't played this game by now, really, this is just for people who have not played the game. It feels like this is just something that they're introducing to bring in the couple people who have not bought Cyberpunk already. There is now a free demo on Xbox, I believe. It's 5 hours long. Maybe it exists on PlayStation, but basically, if you haven't played it yet, this is a good chance to check it out. But for me, I'm probably going to delete it. I've been waiting for months. I've been keeping this game installed for months, waiting and hoping that this next gen patch would be a bit more than just an ability to change my haircut. But hey, I guess you get what you get. Thanks so much for watching, gamers. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a like, share it with your friends, and subscribe if you haven't already. But do me the biggest favor of all, and keep dreaming. Man. CD Projekt Red, just fix the game. Fix it, make it bigger, make it better. Thanks so much for watching that video. If you want to see something else, you can always click this link to see what I put up last, or, subscribe and see what's coming up next. Also, I promise that whatever I do, it'll try not to suck.